An urban legend, urban myth, urban tale, or contemporary legend is a form of modern folklore consisting of stories that may or may not have been believed by their tellers to be true. As with all folklore and mythology, the designation suggests nothing about the story's veracity, but merely that it is in circulation, exhibits variation over time, and carries some significance that motivates the community in preserving and propagating it. Despite its name, an urban legend does not necessarily originate in an urban area. Rather, the term is used to differentiate modern legend from traditional folklore in pre-industrial times. For this reason, sociologists and folklorists prefer the term contemporary legend. Urban legends are sometimes repeated in news stories and, in recent years, distributed by email. People frequently alleged that such tales happened to a friend of a friend, so often, in fact, that friend of a friend has become a commonly used term when recounting this type of story. Some urban legends have passed through the years with only minor changes to suit regional variations. Here is one of the urban legends. Creepy history. The Stairway to Hell in Tagus, North Dakota. Ghost trains, hellhounds, and glowing gravestones haunt this tiny, abandoned prairie town that supposedly contains a stairway to hell. If someone asked you where the stairway to hell was, you'd probably think they were somewhere outside of the United States, right? You'd think it was in a more historical location with roots in religion, like Rome, wouldn't you? Well, legend has it that the stairs are actually in wait for it. North Dakota. Yep, North Dakota. The prairie state, the heartland, houses the infamous pathway to hell. North Dakota is dotted with small towns that were once prosperous, but have now become ghostly and unpopulated. One such town is Tagus, which was founded in the early 1900s and is now mostly abandoned. If you visit, you won't see a whole lot, just a few houses and a bunch of dilapidated structures. However, the rumor is that there's an old Lutheran church that was once a hotbed for satanic worship. The church was burned down by vandals, but many have claimed there was a large upside-down cross, a mark of Satanism, painted on the front of the building, and underneath the church is where it's said you can step right down into hell. If you stand in the right spot, near where the church burned down, you can apparently hear the screams of those condemned to hell. St. Patrick's Purgatory is a monastery on Station Island in Ireland where St. Patrick was subjected to disturbing visions of hell by no less a light than Christ himself. Okay, now we're getting closer to the mark. But you have to travel all the way to Ireland to see it. Closer to home, the Gates of Guinea in New Orleans promises admittance to the demon's lair with a few conditions. First, you have to locate 7 different gates, which are scattered throughout the city. Then you have to open them in the correct order, which seems like a lot of work to me. Why Mephistopheles would want to make entry so difficult is puzzling when you consider that he's usually trying to ensnare people against their wills. A proper gateway to hell, it seems to me, ought to be easy to access, like the Devil's Gate Dam in Pasadena, California. It sits smack in the middle of a community of 12 million people and is easily accessible from the Foothill Freeway. Or the abandoned Storm Tunnel in Clifton, New Jersey, which can be reached via commuter train from New York City in less than an hour. As one looks deeper into this phenomenon, it begins to appear the planet is perforated like a pincushion with gateways to the underworld. Some are easier to access than others, but all are a little difficult to get into once you're there. Locked doors, sealed passageways, and no trespassing signs appear to be the rule. But one thing all these places have in common is that they're creepy as hell, even if they fail to achieve the functionality of a simple turnstile. The gateway to hell in Tagus, North Dakota, is no exception. A town that reached its peak population in 1940. Tagus was reduced to a ghost town in 1976 when the last business shut its doors. Today it's a collection of eerie abandoned houses 40 miles west of Minot. You can get there by exiting off Highway 2 and traveling 2 miles north. No one will stop you. Once there, finding the gateway is a little more challenging. First, you must locate the foundation of the church that burned to the ground in 2001. The spot is marked by a square memorial built of brick with the name of St. Olaf's Lutheran Church inscribed on it. According to legend, this church was home to a group of devil worshippers who conducted satanic rituals in the 80s and 90s. Human sacrifice, bestiality, cannibalism, infants on skewers, the wholesale slaughter of white kittens, the usual satanic playbook. Many have claimed there was an upside-down cross painted on the door, and inside was a stairway that spiraled down into the earth, the stairway to hell. The stairway is filled in now, the ground plowed over it, so it's hard to say exactly where it was, but if you stand near the spot and listen carefully, you can hear the screams of the tormented, or so they say. I tried it but didn't hear anything. Still, I can't deny it was creepy. I could have stood round and tried for longer, but I got the willies and stepped away. I didn't want to rouse any hellhounds. That's another part of the legend, the hellhounds. Supposedly, they're lying in wait, and if you're not careful, they'll appear out of nowhere, snarling and snapping and threatening to tear your heart out. The abandoned houses are said to be haunted too. Weird sounds, weeping and moaning, and the occasional far-off cry of an infant. I poked around and took some pictures, but I didn't actually go into any of the houses. I'm no fool. You don't know what you might stir up when you're that close to a hellgate. There's supposedly a glowing tombstone and a phantom train that runs through the town from time to time, but I didn't see either of those things. Instead, I came upon an automobile graveyard, which was spooky enough. The rusting hulks of old cars and trucks, discarded in this forsaken place, with not a soul around. Saturday morning. It was winter on the Great Plains. A bleak pall had settled on the land. Somewhere deep inside I was feeling a simmering dread. If a door had slammed, I would have jumped out of my skin. I made one more circuit of the town and took some more shots. Then I got back into my car and drove away, relief washing over me. Skeptical as I am about such things, I had to admit the possibility that the legends could be true, in the same way that you realize a deep cavern isn't like to collapse on you, but you know that earthquakes do happen from time to time. Going to the entrance of a hellgate is messing with fate, and testing your courage against it is like spending a night alone in a haunted house, and we all know how that turns out. The two best things about visiting Tagus are the anticipation you feel before going there, and the relief you feel when you're driving away. Both are delicious. But the time in between, the time spent flirting with the diabolical, is a tad unpleasant. Maybe it's best all these hellgates are so difficult to penetrate. If it were easy, people would be slipping away into the netherworld with alarming regularity. What with drug addiction, political outrage, and abusive relationships, we have plenty of ways of getting dragged down into the abyss, without having to rely on geography. It's just too bad we can't get rid of those other passageways with a bulldozer, some dirt, and a chain-link fence. Tagus was founded in 1900, on a rolling spot on the prairie, 40 miles west of Minot, just off Highway 2. A railroad settlement town, it reached a peak population of 140 in 1940. It was originally named Wallace, but was later renamed Tagus to avoid confusion with the town of Wallace, Idaho. The origin of the name Tagus is still in dispute. It is now primarily abandoned, with a handful of residents and numerous vacant structures. If you've ever been to North Dakota, you might have realized it's not the busiest, most exciting state in the country. unless you know where to look for some seriously messed up history. And of course, ghostly legends. North Dakota has many different urban legends about ghost sightings, underground, haunted tunnels at the state university, hauntings on Air Force Base. However, the most popular paranormal rumor to come of North Dakota would have to be that there's a gateway to hell in Tagus, North Dakota, complete with hellhounds and a demon train that runs at night.